Now, that is not something that they want us to pass on. They do not want their children or our children knowing that. Because if they know that, even their children knows that, there may be a chance that they do good by their bads. They do good by what their their ancestors did that was wrong to African American people. But it's a slap in the face for African Americans for someone to say they're anti critical race theory. And the reason why it's a slap in the face is because, in other words, you're saying that what you have done to our people, or what you have done to African Americans, if you're not African Americans, is not significant to you. What you have done, you are not forgiving those things that your ancestors have done to African American people. And the secret keeps us sick, because the secret does not allow for amends of, it does not allow for the amends of what has happened. We need healing in America because of all of the things that has been done. We need, and we will not get healing if we do not fight to keep the history, the things that has happened, good or bad, in this country, especially the bad, especially the atrocities. We will not heal, black or white. We will not heal from the guilt. Those who have ancestors that were of what they call the superior group, or who they feel are the superior group, or who have been taught that they are the superior group, we will not heal from the guilt that they have from all of the things that their ancestors and those who had come before them have done to African American people. We will not heal as African American people from all of the atrocities that were done by white Americans if we do not continue with learning about critical race theory. It will not happen. We do not heal by covering things up. We do not heal by brushing things under the rug as if they did not happen. We do not heal that way. And so all we're doing is causing things to continue. All we're doing is closing our eyes to what is already there and what has been here. Not only the history of the oppression that African Americans received, but also what is going on now. For instance, Black women are dying in the hospitals when they're birthing their children for preventable and dying of preventable causes. Also, their babies are dying in the hospitals. And we're number one for that. Our numbers are number one. Additionally, we are going through police brutality. Not just the men now are receiving police brutality. Women are experiencing police brutality, Black women. But then we're supposed to brush this under the rug and not teach it and not allow our children, American children, or children here in America being taught history about what's going on. It makes us sick. It keeps us sick. It keeps us in trauma. It was traumatic both for Black Americans and white Americans. What has happened in this country was traumatic for the both. What has happened to African American people has been traumatic to the land in which we stand here in America. And we must fight to keep our land safe, to keep our citizens safe, to keep our to hold up to what we call the Constitution, to move forward in equality. So we must do away with the anti-critical race theory process and laws. We must fight that critical race theory is taught. And not only taught, it is enacted and stressed that we continue to develop laws and reversing the inequalities that are here in America. We can move to the next slide. So you may say, a lot of people who are against critical race theory, they're the anti-critical race theory theorists. They may say, well, those things that happened to Black people and African American people was of the past. That is not something that we should be talking about now, because that was of the past. And we should leave it in the past. Why should we teach our children about things that was of the past? Well, it's really not in the past. Really, the things of the past that happened to African Americans has affected us in a very profound way, in a very systematic way. And that's why we have to speak on it, because it will continue. For instance, I have this slide right here. It's about the wealth gap. And looking at the wealth gap, we know that there's not equality when we're looking at this. So the white families have sustainably more wealth than Black families. The minimum net worth of Black households was less than 15% that of white families in 2019. White families, the average is $188,200, and Blacks $24,100. Can you believe that? And that's for a reason. That is what's going on now. But what is not talked about is when places like Black Wall Street that were burned down, that were doing very well economically. We had our own businesses. We were sustainable. We were sustaining ourselves. But that was destroyed and our people were slaughtered. So when we talk about the wealth gap, we talk about critical race theory or anti-critical race theory, we must know why critical race theory is so important in teaching that, and teaching what is still going on systematically. How are African Americans, Black Americans being attacked systematically and have? Or how have the ways in which we have been treated, our people, our ancestors have been treated, is affecting us now? Because 2019 was not that long ago. We must understand. So we can go to the next slide, and I will continue on the journey of how African Americans experience inequality compared to white Americans. So the poverty, we're going to talk about poverty. The poverty rate of Black Americans in 2019 was more than double that of white Americans. 0%, 10%, 20%, 30% white, Blacks 7.3 and 18.8%. So this is much higher. And looking at the chart, when you look at the chart, it says whites, when we're talking about poverty, are at 7.3% compared to Blacks at 18.8%. Look at the difference. And why? And part of the reason why, a good part of the reason why, is because it has not been that long ago that we have been under attack economically, not allowed to grow our communities economically. And when we did grow our communities, those things being destroyed. So we must understand this is another reason that critical race theory is so important. And we can move to the next slide now. Now, we can't talk about wealth and we can't talk about poverty without talking about unemployment. And so the unemployment rate of Black Americans exceed that of white Americans. And by how much? White Americans experience 5.3% of unemployment. That's the unemployment rate from white Americans. Black Americans are at 9.7%. And then again, we must understand that this is all systematic. We must understand that if we do not have our own industries, we do not have our own businesses, we are counting on attaining jobs from people outside of our community, that being African Americans and Blacks. And we must understand the injustices that are happening in these corporations and these companies. We must understand that we are systematically affected because of what has been done to our ancestors. And this must be addressed. Critical race theory not only needs to be a part of our school systems, of our learning about critical race theory in our schools, on our jobs. We must understand what is happening to Black people and how the past has affected the outcome of Black people. We can move to the next slide. Okay, now this last slide, let's fight for the truth. Let's talk about fighting for the truth, because as many have heard, the truth will set you free. We have to understand that if we are promoting anti-critical race theory systems, if we're promoting that we will never break free. We will never break free from the trauma that we have gone through as a country. The trauma of Black Americans being slaughtered, being raped, being in concentration camps, and so many more atrocities that you may not even imagine. Medical apartheid being experimented on, to say a few. We will not be able to break free as Blacks if we take our history out of the schools. If we do not teach our children what is really going on and what has really happened to Black people. We must fight for truth, because anti-critical race theory is hiding the truth. It's brushing everything under the rug as if it will go away. And quite frankly, those who are fighting for anti-critical race theory do not want change. They do not want change at all, because first of all, in order for change to happen, there must be awareness. And if there is no awareness, if people do not know what is going on, we cannot move forward. Additionally, we cannot grow as a country, as Americans in the land, without equality and without healing. We have to heal from our past. We have to heal from the things that are going on in present time. So critical race theory is the door that will set us free. One of the doors that will set us free. The last thing we must understand as a country and as a people, as African people, what we must understand is that we have to understand how to work together. We must come together in unity and fight for what is right. Fight to acknowledge and spread awareness about the systematic inequalities and discrimination and racism that is going on, because literally we are still dying like our ancestors did of the past. So I would like to thank you so much for coming. I would like to thank you, and I hope that you have really gotten something out of this. And I would encourage you to learn more about critical race theory, learn more about anti-critical race theory, and how you can get involved in fighting for truth. I thank you again so much for coming to this conference. We have the next speaker that we have is Akachi Azubike, and she is the chief editor of Black Afrocan digital publishing and journalist. Akachi writes about issues pertaining to global African development, current events, and news. She is a University of Houston graduate in economics and African drummer. She is also a photographer who lives in Houston, Texas, with her pet dog, Nayla Ngozi. She loves bike riding, visiting museums, and is an art enthusiast. She's been a featured guest on the Auto Show and Chisholm Live. Welcome, Akachi.
Thank you, Dr. Simona. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for that amazing, presentation that you gave about trauma and how that's impacting us as a people and what we need to do to, expose the secret and, eventually get to healing from that secret. So that was very powerful. Thank you. I hope that you all are actually out there taking copious notes as I am, because that was a lot of really good information that was shared with us today. Go ahead and, take a deep breath and enjoy yourself for the second part, because I'm very excited to share with you what I'm going to be talking about, which is identity. So if you don't already have a clean sheet of paper and pad, go ahead and get that out, and let's hop on into it, because I'm going to take you on this journey into your identity. So, starting off, who are you? That is a pivotal question. When you were born, you were first identified by your parents and your gender, right? Typically male or female, right? Um, if you were born in an African tradition, you were later named after there were rituals that were performed. So you were also identified by your name. I want you to write down your full name, because whether you are African or not, whether your name is African or not, most likely your name has meaning. And I will share with you later as to how you can find out that meaning. That meaning if you don't already know. Now, obviously there are several aspects of our identity, and there are several ways in which we identify ourselves. So, if you look at typically a job application or something of that nature, a standard form will have identifiers as to who you are, starting with your name, your gender, your race, your ethnicity, where you were born, your country of origin. Um, if you are black or white or somewhere in between, I think I may have said, but as I said, your ethnicity. Those are things that are part of our identity. And what I would like you to do is jot down, as I go over these aspects of your identity, what resonates most with you. So just jot that down. So another aspect of who we are may be an organization or institution that we're affiliated with, or that we're a member of. For example, you may be part of a religious tradition. So you may be Christian or Muslim or a traditionalist or Hindu. Those may be part of your core identity. It may be that you are in a sorority or some other organization. Another aspect of who we are tends to be, whether or not you are a mother, if you're a parent, are you a wife, a spouse, a grandmother, an auntie, a sister, your relationships to your friends. Who are you to the people that you're connected with? And maybe you're single, and you're hopeful to not be single, or maybe you're single and you're like, nope, fool. You're like, nope, I'm not interested. I'm happy where I am. Those are aspects of what makes up who we are. Another part of our identity can be if we experience some sort of trauma. Did we experience an accident that may have been life changing, something that shifted the direction of our lives and how we saw ourselves? It could also be a struggle that you overcame. Perhaps there was something that you may have a disability. I don't like to call it a disability, but you may have something that makes your life a little more challenging. And that's part of how you identify yourself. Another aspect of our identity would be perhaps your personal attributes. So, for example, your appearance, your physique, the kind of clothing that you wear, how you present yourself to the world. It could be your personality. So maybe you're a very caring and very giving person, and people know that when they need a volunteer, you're the person that they call. Or maybe you are very ambitious and you're a leader, you're a trailblazer. And so people know that, when there's a position for leadership, you're the person to help us, lead us, guide us on the path to accomplish something. Another aspect of who you may be is that, you're the social butterfly. Maybe you're that person that knows everyone. You have a large network. You can always be counted on to bring people together and to um, make sure that everyone's having a good time. People feel comfortable with you. People have a good time with you. And that's part of your makeup, part of your identity. Or maybe you are a person that is very deep and analytical. You're the researcher. You might be a bit more reserved. You're the person that maybe people come to when they have a problem, because the way that your mind works very mechanically, you can process and analyze things very deeply. And so you can help people in that way. Or, you like to problem solve. That's another aspect of our identities. Perhaps you may see yourself based on your accomplishments. Your accomplishments could be anything from education, your respective career, any awards. Maybe you played high school or collegiate sports, professional sports, um, things like that. They identify you. It could also be a certain unique skill, a rare skill, or something that you've developed that you may do. You may speak more than one language, and so that helps you to identify across more than one culture. So you have that as a factor of your identity. Or maybe you have a certain hobby or an interest that identifies you. Maybe you sing very well, you're a dancer, or maybe you're a sculptor, a painter, or a swimmer. Um, like myself, I African drum, and that's something that is new to my identity. I've only been drumming now for about a year, give or take about a year, and almost a year and a half. And so, that's a new aspect of my identity. So maybe there's something else, a new skill or hobby that you've picked up that people attribute to who you are. And then there's another aspect of our identity, which may be the things that you may acquire, things that you own. Maybe it's your lifestyle. Maybe it's, that you own land, you own a home, you own real estate, or cars, boats, you travel. Maybe the sort of things that you do in your life identify you, and that's how you see yourself. Now, of course, there are other aspects of our identity that I may have left off, but I would like you to jot those things down if it comes to mind um, later on during the course of this presentation. So now what I want to talk about with you is your internal perceptions of the aspects of your identity. What do I mean by that? Now, if you look over your list, right, I'm sure there are several aspects of your identity that you that make up who you are. It's a culmination of the whole part of the whole. It's a culmination of you that makes you whole, right? I want you to imagine, if you will, that you are about to embark on writing a biography, and that each chapter in that biography is an aspect of your identity. Okay. And I want you to think about what would be the core focus areas of your identity that you would want to write about. What are those things that are most close to you that you would make as chapters in a book regarding your identity? I want you to underline or highlight that on your list. And the reason why that's important is because we need to understand what is the value placement on the aspects of your identity that you hold to your core. So what do I mean? For example, as Dr. Simona was speaking of being African American, that's a part of someone's identity. Now, in this country, it's interesting. I've been doing some research, and what I have found out from one of the professors who has studied specifically on ethnicity as far as Black people in the United States is that there is a movement away from Black Americanness. So whether a person may be a Black immigrant from Africa, continental Africa, or Black immigrant from the Caribbean or anywhere in the world, there is a disassociation with being Black American because of what that means in this specific country and some of the challenges that are placed on a person from that specific lineage. And so, if you have certain values that are placed on your identity, you need to understand, are those values internal or external? Okay? Because that's going to shape how you see yourself. So, irrespective of what the world may see you as, you have to know who you are and take pride in the fact that if you are considered or part of African American, Black American lineage, you have to know that essentially, irrespective of what the country may do in opposition to you and your lineage, you have to find the strength and the courage and the beauty in that. And so, another example is, what value do you place on, say, for example, the trauma in your life? Now, you can look at the trauma that you may have experienced in your life, and it may cause deep pain. It may be a place of sorrow, perhaps, but you have to determine whether or not the kind of value you place on it, if it's going to be part of you, is it going to be something that shapes your future and your reality for the positive or something for the negative, right? Another example could be your accomplishments. So let's say you have aspirations in your career, but maybe you're not where you want to be. If you have a level of value placed on your identity as it relates to your work, to your career, and you don't feel like you're where you need to be or where you want to be, then you may be devaluing yourself without even realizing it. You may not have the confidence that you need and the self-appreciation of where you are because you're looking simply at, I'm not there yet, right? Another example could be, especially here in America, in the West, it's about what you own. What do you have? Where do you live? What do you drive? And if you have a high value placed on these material items, then you may be devaluing yourself because you've embodied that as part of your identity. And so these aspects of our identity have to be evaluated. I want you to look at that list and consider what is the value that you place on those areas. And that brings us to the next aspect, which is, what is your narrative? Because if the narrative isn't something that's beneficial to you, then you're in trouble, right? And so our narratives can be shaped internally as well as externally. What people value and ascribe to your identity impacts how you feel about yourself, whether it be society overall in general, whether it be your parents, your family, your friends, or maybe someone that you have a great deal of respect for, or someone that you deeply admire. Those people have an idea of who you are, and they identify you as such, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, most importantly is, what do you think and see about yourself? What is the identity for yourself? It has to be a narrative that comes from within. As much as, your parents may want you to be one thing, you may be something completely different. As I said in the beginning, when you're born, the first aspect of your identity before you come into the world is attached to your parents, and then your gender, and then you're given a name. And so we have to think about, how does narrative shape us? And a short memory comes to mind for me is when I was maybe about 11 or 12 years old. There was one of the fathers in the neighborhood a parent and friend of my mom's. He said, "That's the boss right there." And, just out of nowhere, he was talking to my mom, and I overheard this, and he pointed at me, and, it caught my attention, that that's the boss over there. And he began to talk about how, you know, yes, that, she tells them where they're going to go bike riding. She tells them, what game we're going to play. And I started to feel embarrassed. I was embarrassed because boss in my mind had a negative connotation. And what he was actually saying to my mom is that I was a leader, but I didn't internalize it that way. And so, in fact, what I realized as I got older is that I ran to some degree away from leading, even though it was something that, he wasn't the first person, but that was something that was naturally seen within me from young, and I didn't embrace it. And so we have to think about those narratives that we hold because, you may come from a position of wealth or privilege, and you may feel shameful about that, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't feel shameful. You should feel proud of who you are and embrace that aspect of your identity and change the narrative. Instead, think of it as I'm in a position of wealth or privilege, or I have access to resources that I can use to empower those who are disadvantaged. So that's why we have to change the narrative regarding who we are and how we see ourselves. Another short personal memory was I remember being in church, when I was in high school, and how my pastor he spoke in somewhat affirmation, but also he was somewhat condescending about the idea of people reaching higher education, to stay humble and to remember who you are. And, there's this Southern mentality that, you think you're so smart, and this was something else that I know now has shaped uh, who I am and what I thought when I was younger about intellect, about uh, excelling in school even. And so, who do you think you are? This lowly, even I would dare say, unfortunately, a slave mentality regarding, you think you're too uppity, right? And so, especially in the South, you make yourself small, you shrink yourself, and so that impacted me, and I didn't even know it. And so I had to change the narrative about what I think and what I feel about being big, taking up space, standing tall, and irrespective of how that may make another person feel. Not don't be arrogant. I'm not advocating for arrogance, but you understand what I'm saying. And so we have to change the network, the narrative of how we see ourselves. Another thing in terms of personal experience, I'm no longer Christian, and so that was part of my identity for, you know nearly half of my life. And so how does that change how I see myself? How does it change how I relate to my friends or my family or other people that I respect and that I admire, that still may, be in or practice that faith? And I was questioning, like, how will they embrace me? Will they change towards me? And so I had to change the narrative, that and understand that that's not really my concern. My concern has to be me living in my truth. you know and so when you look at that list of those core items in those chapters that you would write if you were writing a biography, think about how you may need to change the narrative. Is that narrative that you have replaying in your mind, does it serve you and your purpose? So that brings me to the next aspect of identity. What if you just don't know, you know, who you are? You don't think you really understand your identity. Well, I would say hopefully you at least have one item on your list, even if it's just your gender and your race. Your family, your parents, your name, that's a starting point. Okay. This gives you an opportunity, and I would say, even if you think you know who you are, to continue self discovery, to continue exploration of who you are and digging into the core of who you are and where you come from. And so, if you don't know, a good place to always start is with your family. You know, learn your genealogy, learn your grandparents, your great grandparents. What was their lives? What were their skills? What were their talents? What were their gifts? What were their struggles? Because you may begin to see a pattern and see certain aspects that you embody from them. You can start to see your strengths. I love cooking, and it was amazing when I learned that my great grandfather was a chef. It made all the sense in the world, right? Because that's something that I love to do. And so you start to learn about yourself. Now, if you recall earlier, I said write down your name. I want you to write down behindthename.com, because whether or not you have an African name or not, more than likely you have a meaning to your name. And you can start there as well. And then I would also suggest that you do some self-reflection. Start journaling, start meditating, take a walk, get some fresh air, get quiet, walk in nature, sit by a pond, a body of water, and just allow yourself to be and listen to the inner voice of who you are that speaks to you. Now, something else that's very key to our empowerment is you can't hide from who you are, right? You cannot outrun your shadow. It's with you everywhere you go. And the night will reveal it, right? When you get in the dark, when you get in the quiet and there's light cast on you, you will see that shadow. It is attached to you everywhere that you go. And it's nothing to run from. It's nothing to hide from. In fact, what I find, and even, in my own self-reflection, I think that sometimes we run from our identity and who we are because we're afraid of the power. We're afraid of what that may require us to become, what it may require us to embark on and do once we discover who we are. And so what I say, instead of being afraid, is that you cultivate and train yourself to understand your power, to better wield that power, obviously for good, right? Don't use the force and join the dark side. You got to stay on this side. And so when you look at things that may fear you, that you may be afraid of, ask yourself why. Like, why are you afraid? What's the worst thing that could happen? If you embrace what it is that you may be afraid of. I also know that questioning and the evolution of your identity can be scary because you feel vulnerable. You have this idea that you know who you are, and then something confronts you in life that questions it, that challenges it. Like, who are you? And you have to reevaluate and remember those core aspects of your identity that are the foundation that keep you on, solid ground. And so what I would say also is that get comfortable with the uncomfortable to some degree and being vulnerable. And just know that those core values that make up who you are and how you identify, that's your foundation, and that you will be secure if you listen to your inner self. Now, I would say that most people probably know that the only change, the only constant, in this world is change, right? And so you also have to give yourself room to change. You have to give yourself room to grow. Give your identity flexibility. You're not going to be the same person that you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or maybe even a year ago. As I said, now in the community, I'm known as an African drummer. That was not something that I ever planned on. I never I never intended to do that, but I was called to the drum. And so here I am as a drummer. Um, Another aspect of who you are, if you don't know by now, is that you're human. Okay, you're part of the human family, and because you're part of the human family, it has to be understood that we're all connected. We're all connected to everything. This world that we live in is a fishbowl, and so what we do and what we put into this, um, it stays. And so we need to live a life wherein we recognize that our responsibility, our role is to help bring out the best that we see in a person's identity and who they are so that we can empower other people, this world, and make it better. Um, I would like to say that when you recognize your connectedness in your identity to other people, it's what makes you unique, but it also is what connects you to everyone else. And you begin to see yourself in other people. And when you begin to see yourself in other people, then you begin to recognize that the issues that we have going on in this world are not just something for someone else to solve. It's something that I have a responsibility to solve because it impacts me by extension of another person, part of the human family. And so when you look at the crisis that's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, that was something that could have been prevented. When we look at the injustices, as Dr. Simona said earlier today, um, critical race theory is is a human issue. It's not an issue that's particular to one ethnic group or one race or one culture of people or one nation of people. Because believe it or not, the things that are taking place right here in the United States impact people on the other side of the planet, right? And so we have to be mindful of that. We have to be mindful of how we are all connected and know that there's beauty in knowing your uniqueness and your identity, as well as how that those aspects of your identity connect you to other people. And so I want to say in closing that self-love is the key. And I'm going to repeat that. Self-love is the key. You have to love yourself, and you have to understand that the many aspects that make up your identity, you can accept those, and also know that the things that you don't like, aspects of your identity that you want to change, you can change it. You don't have to keep it. You can evolve, you can grow, and that you can be flexible, and that you can stand on who you are. You know, our identities, I feel, gives us the ability to rebirth ourselves. You can let old identities go and rebirth yourself over and over again as many times as you need to accomplish the many purposes that you have in your life. And so that's going to require, new levels of who you are to become. And that's a beautiful thing. That's part of this journey of life. And I think that as long as you know who you are and those purposes, the value that you place on those aspects of your identity come primarily from within, from your core, your spirit, and it's not externally imposed on you, you will always be in a good place. So with that being said, I want to thank you all. This is my presentation, and now we are going to move forward to our final speaker, Her Excellency, Dr. Uwa Onyiwa Osimiri. Now, as you all know, Dr. Uwa is the founder and president of the African Women Mobilization Commission. Her charm and enthusiasm and her wit have changed regular people into exceptional successes by employing her personal life and in her in-depth examination of others' trials, and to develop excuse me, her in-depth examination of others' trials to develop an insight into what produces results doesn't work and why. She has been featured in the Detroit News as one of Michigan's most influential women, Atlanta's own Voyage magazine, and many other publications. She has lectured at Wayne State University, Oakland University, Michigan State University, University of Phoenix, Emory University, and countless secondary and grammar schools. Presenting Dr. Uwa.
Well, 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 that wonderful introduction. I thank you so much, Akachi. What can I say? And thank you, Dr. Monet. Both of you have made exceptional presentations. We are just so humbled by your presentation. Thank you. Thank you for sharing some excellent words with us. And we're going to move forward. But before we do that, I just kind of wanted to share something with you before I go into my PowerPoint presentation. I just want to share some words with you. Before we understand, I think it's imperative that we understand what the organization is about before we keep going on and on. Because some people say, well what is African Women Mobilization Commission? So I'd just like to briefly just share that with you for those of you who don't know. I hope that you are fulfilled by what you are hearing today from our wonderful presenters, trauma, identity, and now stepping into your power, which is my presentation. But the mission of the organization is what we call impact, mobilization, philanthropy, advocacy, cultural programming, and training. So today you have the opportunity to witness the training component of the mission of AWMC. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. I am so excited to be here with you. I'm quite frankly, I'm looking forward to when we get an opportunity to see you as opposed to just being on Zoom or StreamYard or something like that. Well, thank you, Akachi, and thank you, Dr. Monet. My presentation today is going to be called Shake That Bridge. Shake That Bridge. And to tell you about what it means to shake the bridge, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the ant and the elephant. Before I go into that, let me talk about what I am going to present to you today. The ant and the elephant. You do not want to be a common man or woman, seek opportunity, not security, who are in your circle. Know your place in the world. Do not die for nothing. Go after what you want with all your capacity and shake that bridge. Shake that bridge. Doesn't that sound good? Sounds like something we should all be doing. Just shaking, 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 making a difference in our own world. Not just the world of others. You got to start with yourself. So I want to start by telling you the theory. I call it a theory, quite frankly. The theory of the ant and the elephant. The story of the ant and the elephant is that the ant and the elephant went across the bridge one day. And as they were crossing the bridge was shaking. And as the bridge shook, the ant looked back to see where they have come. And of course, he didn't want the bridge to break. He just wanted it to shake under the weight of the elephant until they got to the other side of the bridge. So they did. And when they got to the other side of the bridge, the ant looked back to see how far they had traveled. And he said, "Thank you, my dear God, for allowing us to cross that bridge. Thank you for all that I have achieved in my life and everything. You know, I've been able to escape the people with their big feet stepping around me and they didn't crush me. And thank you for giving the elephant the opportunity to cross this bridge without falling down and all of that." So he was just so grateful. Then after he turned around to the elephant, he said, "Did we not shake that bridge, elephant? Did we shake that bridge? Give me 5. We shook that bridge." What does that mean? The elephant agreed. Yes, of course, we shook the bridge. But see, here's the thing. Convincing yourself and others that you matter, that you make a difference, you have to validate yourself. That's what it is. Shaking the bridge, starting with validating yourself, your self-worth. You have to believe the self-worth is a sense of one's value and how you are as an individual. What you believe that you can achieve is all that matters. Self-validation is important to feel positive and worthy. And if you feel good about yourself, then other people will feel, well, they'll believe. See, that's the thing. If you feel good about yourself, if you believe that you are able to do certain things, people will believe it too, because it's your enthusiasm that convinces them that you are worth all of that. The elephant believed the little ant. The ant that perched on his shoulder. The elephant shook the bridge. The ant didn't shake the bridge. The elephant did. But he was able to convince the elephant that he shook the bridge. And the elephant believed it. This is what happens when you believe yourself, when you have positive approach towards your feelings, your thoughts, your behavior. Once you believe in yourself, other people will believe you. That's how you shake the bridge. You shake the bridge by letting people know, hey, look, I'm this and that. I'm all of that. I'm everything that I say I am. But they will not believe you if you don't believe it. I have a lot of people who walk around here, they don't want to go to certain things because they're afraid of what people will do, what people will say about them. Just go. It doesn't matter what they feel about you. Just go. Because guess what? If you walk into anything and you're confident, you're shaking the bridge. When you are confident and you exude confidence, that's shaking the bridge. That means people will believe, just like the elephant believed that the little ant helped him shake the bridge. When you walk into a room, people should know what you think about yourself. People should be excited to see you. People should be so excited to see you because of the way you conduct yourself. Somebody says, Dr. Simiri, you're so intimidated. I'm not intimidated. Excuse me, let me correct this. I'm not trying to intimidate anyone. I just love life. I love me. When I walk into a room, I want people to know I'm here to shake the bridge. I'm not intimidated by anyone. My father always used to say to me, the person that you are afraid of, do they have a horn growing out of their forehead? If they don't have that, then why are you afraid of them? So you can walk into any room, look at everybody and see who has the horn coming out of their faces. If nobody does, shake the bridge, honey. Get in there and have fun. Let people know that you are here and you are proud of who you are. Too many of us are not proud. Too many of us are embarrassed by certain things about us. I remember, I stand accused. When I was young in school, I was so thin. They used to call me Daniko. That means like that's the praying mantis. You know how skinny. I was so thin. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed of it. That was when I was in Nigeria. I was trying to do everything I could to add a little bit more meat to my bones. So I used to wear, no, I'm going to admit it. I used to wear double pantyhose. Put a little meat on my legs because it was really tiny. Okay. But when I come to America, when I found that people did not really care what you look like, people relate to you based on what you present. My confidence started building. I mean, my father had a lot to do with it, but when I came to the United States, in terms of my looks and all that kind of stuff, I didn't see myself as a praying mantis anymore. I started seeing myself as somebody who, hey, nobody cares. Nobody cares. You should be the only one who cares. Nobody cares how you look. It's how you present yourself. People write this down. If you don't know that already, you should know it. It is not what people think about you that matters. It's what you say about yourself, what you feel, how you present yourself. If you are cowardly, people will see you as a coward and they prey on cowards. If you're vibrant, people will enjoy your company. So self-validation is important. Shake that bridge. Be like the ant. Convince people that you are what you say you are. But first of all, you have to believe it. Be uncommon. Be uncommon. What does it mean to be uncommon? Don't be like everybody else. Don't be like everybody else. A remarkable person, being uncommon is a remarkable, exceptional person of uncommon courage. Somebody who has courage. It doesn't matter what the situation, they're going to go out there and do what they have to do. You're unboring. There's nothing worse than being in the company of a boring person. God knows I've been around some of those people. And you don't, and when they call you on the phone, you don't answer. Be uncommon. When somebody picks up the phone and wants to talk to you, be jovial. Don't focus on nonsensical things. Yeah, I know sometimes, health challenges and all that sort of thing. God knows I have some of it myself. But and that sometimes will bring you down and make you just talk about those things, But don't make that the focus of your life. Don't be prone to vulnerability. Don't be so vulnerable that people take advantage of you. Shake that bridge. Let people know when you're there that, I'm not here. I was watching a show where this father told the son, they may be bigger than you. And my dad did that with me when I was a little girl. Same thing with this young man. The dad said, they may be bigger than you, but if they hit you, you hit back. Do not give them the impression that you're vulnerable. Even if you're scared, they may not know it. Believe it or not, the elephant can run from a little mouse if the mouse has the audacity to stand in front of it and look up to it. So don't make yourself so vulnerable because when you're around certain people, you want to run and you want to show that you're scared. Be dependable. Here's another thing about being uncommon. Be dependable. People are looking to you. If you make a promise, keep it. Be dependable. There's nothing more powerful than being somebody that if you're going to be there at 3 o'clock, be there at 3 o'clock. If it's 4 o'clock, be there at 4 o'clock. If you say you're going to do something for somebody, do it. Even if you don't like it, as long as you make that promise that you're going to do it, do it. Be uncommon. Don't take the easy way out and decide, well, I just don't want to do it. I'm mad, I'm angry, so I'm going to bail out. You don't do that. Be uncommon. Be dependable. Don't talk a good game, but does the opposite. Don't do the opposite of what you say you're going to do. Don't say you're one thing and then people find out you're not. Don't encourage people to be a certain way and then you're not that way. I'm a hardworking person. Sometimes I don't go to bed till late because I make a promise to my team. This is what we're going to have. If I have to stay up all night to make sure it becomes a reality, I have to do it. Because I cannot talk a good game and do the opposite. To be uncommon means that you are willing to go the distance when others quit, time and time again. Don't quit when the going gets tough. Figure out how you can make the tough easier. Figure out how you can make it work. It's easy to bail. It's easy to let other people carry your pail of water when you promise you were going to carry it and take it home, but you leave it halfway because, it's too heavy. Figure it out. Never quit when you get started. Being uncommon is willing to listen and learn new information. There is nothing worse than a person whose cup is already too full. If your cup is too full, there's nothing else that can go in there. You know everything. You know everything. So why should anybody bother to fill your cup? It's already too full. And that's your mind. If you think that your mind, you know everything, then nobody can teach you anything. Being uncommon means that you are willing to hear the other side of the story. Oh my God, let me tell you, that is a difficult thing for a whole lot of us, to hear the other side of the story. But you must be prepared to hear new information. As a matter of fact, that's how you grow. That's how you grow. And if you are uncommon, you don't blame. If you are responsible for something, take credit for what you've done. To be uncommon means that you don't say that Dr. Monet did talk about some of the trauma that we as a people have faced and continue to face that, quite frankly. But you cannot use that as an excuse not to move forward. There's an African proverb that says, let all the goodness that can come to me. Let the bad go behind me. Abakulo. Let it all go behind. I can't hold on to it because it's a baggage you don't need. So to be uncommon means I'm not going to focus my whole life blaming others, even if I should blame them. The point is, where do I go from here? How do I get around all the foolishness? How do I get around all the foolishness? That's what it means to be uncommon. And you need to practice that. Who are in your circle? Be careful who is in your circle of influence. Many of us just like friends. I'm learning, even at my age, I'm learning that not every smiling face, I don't remember who sang that song. Smiling faces don't always tell the truth, and that is the truth. They don't have ever base friendship on somebody smiling at you and you bring them into your space. I've done that. Oh my God, have I done that? And I've learned the hard way. That is not something you should be doing. Base your decisions on your own best judgment and make sure that you check that person out thoroughly before you bring them into your space. Human nature, we are social animals. We like to have people in our space. We like to be able to chat and talk and all. But I'll tell you one thing, I am learning to enjoy my space. I am learning to enjoy my space. Something happened recently that has just taught me, quite frankly, just take your time picking your friends. Take your time. There's no rush. You already have a best friend, and your best friend is you. You are your own best friend. You're what life is all about. Understand that. Before you start bringing people into your space, have a best friend. That best friend is you and your family members who love you. That's where you start. Don't just bring them in, because there are certain people that we bring into our space. You have the ones that are supportive, usually your family and maybe your best friends. Yeah, some of us are lucky to have best friends. And if you have a best friend, be grateful. Somebody that, some of our best friends started with us when we were little and they stay with us. Those are the kind of people you put in your space, the supportive ones. Then you have those who cause you stress. Those are the people, that are scarecrows. That's why I put that in there. They got to go. I said earlier, you don't have any reason whatsoever to be stuck with people who cause you stress. They have to go. And it's okay. It's perfectly healthy for them to go. Because your health is important. Your well-being is important. And if you have people in it that are not helping you, you don't need them to be there. So it's so important that your circle is people that you love, people who care about you, people who make you feel good about living, not people who make you pray for death. Maybe that's a little exaggeration, but I'll tell you right now, that's true. There are some people you're like, oh my God, really? You know who those people are? Those who shoot on you. All of you know who such people are. They shoot on you. In other words, they say what you should do, what you shouldn't do. They dictate your life. Those are those who shoot on you. You don't need them. They are just as bad as those who cause you stress, because they don't allow you to breathe. They don't allow you to think. And anything that you think is bad, anything that you come up with is no good. They know everything. Those are the people who shoot on you. You don't need those people. And don't hang with the wrong crowd. Many of us think that it's so cool to have a lot of people in our lives. You don't. You don't. The worst thing you can do is to have too many people in your space. Pick and choose. Sometimes 2 or 3 are enough. The rest of them can be your acquaintances that you can hang with now and then. But they don't have to be in your immediate space all the time. They don't have to be in your face, breathing on your face. You don't need all of that. You don't need a crowd. Because I'm going to tell you something why you don't need a crowd. If you have a need, watch and see what happens to your crowd. If you ask for help, watch and see what happens to the crowd. They disappear. Misery loves company. When you are not asking for their help, when you're miserable like they are, oh, that's cool. But if you're trying to do something good, something positive, watch that crowd. You will not see them. They will disappear on you. So you've got to be very careful that you're not misled, that some individuals in your space are interested in your well-being. Not really. Not really. But you have to use your judgment to make sure that you have the right people. And you know what happens when you have the right people in your space? You sleep better. You feel better. You sleep better. You're less stressed. You don't worry about phone calls that you're dreading. I used to have, I think I've shared this story before, a friend of mine that didn't want to hear you call her the Chief Emezue. If you call her and you come with some mess, she'll say, oh, I've got something on the fire. I'm cooking. I'll be right back. And she'll never come back to the phone. And you'll be there holding that phone for the longest. And then when you call her, she will not respond. Then finally, when you get her, you say, well, what happened? I was on the phone. I was trying to talk to you. She says, oh, you feel better now? Because your day doesn't have to be mine. You're having a problem does not have to be my problem. You know. So you have those people that they stress you out. And you have to learn to say, not today. Misery does not need my company. I don't want to hear it. So be selective. It's okay. It's perfectly all right. You have 1, 2, 3 good friends. Good. Go with that. Don't think you have to have that crowd, because sometimes they come with baggage and you get caught up in it. Know your place in the world. Yes. We go through all sorts of challenges. Yes, that is nature. That's life. I don't know of anybody there's no human being that can tell you that they have not had challenges. And sometimes those challenges will make you retreat. But I always tell people what challenge does is make you powerful. It makes you quick on your feet. Struggle is not a bad thing. How in the world are you going to know what not to do if you've never experienced anything bad? That's what makes life, quite frankly, fun. The challenges. And when you bounce out of that challenge, oh my goodness, you feel good. But if everything is humdrum, I remember one of the Twilight Zone episodes. I just want to share that with you. Kind of silly, but this gentleman wanted everything in the world. He died. When he got to hell, I hate to use that expression, but that was the movie. And when he got there, he saw the devil, and he asked the devil, where was he? He said, oh, you're in hell. And he says, but when he looked around, the place was just absolutely gorgeous. Everything was beautiful. It wasn't the picture of hell that he thought. And there were all these beautiful people. There were girls, there were men, there were everything, anything, food galore. And he says, well, what in the world is wrong with her? Why is everybody trying to go elsewhere when everything is right here? And if he wanted anything, he just told the devil. He said, I want a brand new car today. The devil said, okay, very well. There's the car. Poof, there it is. A brand new car. He said, what? Are you kidding me? Anything he wanted, he had. Anything he wanted, he had. Finally, slowly but surely, he started getting tired of not having everything. Every time he got anything, he got angry. And he asked asked the devil, why is it I get everything I want? It's boring. I don't want anything. Don't give me anything anymore. I don't want all of this stuff. Why can't I just fight for what I want? Why can't I work hard for what I want? And the devil says to him, well, welcome to hell. Because here, you get everything you want, but not the way you want it. And that's the way it is with us. You're going to get what you want, but not always the way you want it. So if you have challenge, just look at your muscles and see how it's developing. How well am I doing? It doesn't have to destroy you. It just makes you stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. If you want to know your place in the world, you have to do certain things to belong. You want to belong. But there are certain things you have to do to belong. If you find yourself, you're not comfortable where you are, you don't feel good, this humdrum attitude that you may develop, what you do is do more things. Don't settle for just little things. Do more things. Explore. You can explore just going by the river, putting your feet in the water and getting it cool. Look around you and see nature galore. Do something more. Go to parties. Avoid self-isolating. A lot of people do that. Now, when I say go to parties and all, doesn't mean that you have to become, a party animal and go every day. Now and then get out. You don't have to bring anybody home. You can just go and see the world. You can just be a part of it. Go to a movie. I know that it's so easy for us to get on our couches, and then we can turn on Netflix and whatever all those stations are, Tubi and all of that, YouTube. Sometimes you just get a piece, you get some popcorn, sit down on your couch, and you're watching a movie. So we get comfortable doing that. But sometimes you got to go to the theater, because there is an electrifying thing about the experience of being with other people around you who are expressing excitement about what they're watching on television. So you want to know your place in the world? Be a part of the world. Be a part of the world. I tell this story about the young man who went up to the mountains, and he went to see the sage. And when he got there, he was so bored with life, he just didn't know what to do with his life. He went up there and he asked the sage, "What should I do? How I want to learn a little bit about life because I'm bored." The sage looked at him and said, "Okay, meet me by the river next day, and I'll show you what life is about." So they went to the river. The next day, very early, the young man went by the river, and there was the sage. And the sage looked at him and said, "You see this water, this beautiful expanse of land? There is world. That's the world." So he looked at the sage and said, "Well, what does that mean?" He says, "Well, the river will show you what life is about." So the sage went up, and the young man looked around. He didn't really see anything happening. So he said, well, he would just capture it on canvas. And he would take that to the sage the next day to show him what he captured by the river. And to him, that's what life is about. When he started to paint, and when he got all he needed to paint, the little animals, some monkeys, jumped into the water and started, splashing about. He wanted to capture a tranquil setting, but the monkeys just kind of monkeyed everything up, and so it wasn't peaceful anymore. So he thought he'll come back the next day. Next day he came, and there were more animals in the water splashing about, and the crocodiles and crocodiles chasing the monkeys and what have you. So the water was not tranquil. So he didn't like that either. So he figured the third day, and besides, the sage told him, after 3 days, you come back and tell me what the river showed you about life. So the third day, he had the final day. He still hasn't painted anything. And by the final day, there were more animals in the water. Oh, he screamed, "Oh, but would you all get away from this water?" And of course, they looked at him like he was crazy and went about their business. So he trudged on up to the mountain to see the sage. And the sage asked, "Well, what did you learn about the mountain? About the river. Did the river teach you what life is about?" He says, "No, really. I was trying to paint the river, and all these animals were just coming in and just splashing about, and they messed up everything. So unfortunately, I couldn't paint it. I couldn't really tell you what I learned from the river." He said to the sage said to him, "Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You learned something. And what you learned, you just didn't realize you learned something." See, life is for enjoyment. You have to be a part of life. That river is life. Those animals that you're complaining about are in the river, enjoying the river, the life. They have a life. But you, on the other hand, you want to stand by the shore to paint. Life doesn't work that way. You have to be a part of it. If you want to know your place in the world, be a part of the world. Don't complain about what people are doing to you, those who are enjoying being a part of the world, and you want to sit in your little corner and talk about what life is. Don't talk about life. Experience it. So you want to know your place in the world? Be a part of it. Avoid self-isolating. Move to a place with a more compatible culture. If the place you are, you can't interact with the people there, move out of there. Go to a community where people are like you. Now, I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do. It's not necessarily easy. You may not have the money to move, from where you are, but you can actually find people. I don't know about you. The best place to find people who are like you, go to Meetup. There's a website called Meetup. Go scroll there. You will find people who have your interest. It doesn't cost. Sometimes it's free, and they have events, and you go and see and meet people. If you're an artist, you can join an art group. If you're a poet, they have people who are like you. So to be a part of the world, sometimes you have to be a part of the world. I'm not talking about your circle of friends. I'm talking about being a part of the world, finding out your place. So find compatible culture if where you are or what you're doing is not providing you that. But don't sit by the river and complain about what other people are doing, and you're not willing to jump in and enjoy the river, and that is enjoy life as well. Do not die for nothing. See, my brothers and sisters, I can share this. Everybody will die someday. That is a given. Each one of us, we have a date with death. It will come. We don't know when death will come knocking, but it will. That is a guarantee. There's nothing else guaranteed to you in this world. It is that someday you're going to pay that debt to death. You're going to leave this earth. But the question is, what did you achieve while you were here? Don't die for nothing. Seek opportunity. Don't retreat. Don't retreat and wait for opportunities to come to you. Start thinking about your legacy. When you leave, my father used to ask me, when you leave this world over, what would your tombstone say? I think that's part of what drives me. Besides all the other things he shared with me, you don't have the right to die until you've made a difference. Never live anywhere unknown. But he also said, what would your tombstone say? And you know what? When you start thinking about your legacy, you start working harder to do something, to put something in place. Don't die for nothing. What is it you're passionate about? What is it that you like to do? Do it. No matter if you have some people who say you should or should not, do it anyway. You're going to die someday. You might as well take a chance. Do something positive. Don't wait for people to direct your attention to something they want you to do. Direct it to something that you want to do. Goodness, fall into my hands. Let the bad stuff go away by the wayside. They are good, they are bad. There are good things in the world that you can latch onto, and they are bad things. But most importantly, do not die for nothing, my brothers and sisters. It's got to be something you're good at. There's an African proverb that says, if you're not good in one thing, there is something you're good in. Everybody is good in something. Everybody. Are you a good seamstress? That's something you're good in. Are you an artist? That's what you're good in. You may not be a scientist. You may not be the best cook in the world, but I guarantee you, if you take stock of what you're good in, you will find, oh my God, this is something that I'm so good at. I know I'm good at this. And that's what you must do. Seek opportunity. And sometimes when you say, well, I can't find a job. Okay, well, maybe you can't find a job. Maybe God is trying to tell you something. You don't need a job. You need to use your own skill set to make your money. Sometimes a job is that, just over broke, J-O-B. Maybe God doesn't want you to do that. Chineke doesn't want you to spend all your life in a job. I know people who have spent all their lives with a job, or rather in a job, and when they leave, they give them a watch, or a book, or some credit card to spend maybe $700 in it. Yet you have spent 30 years on a job just over broke. Some of us have to work 2, 3, 4 jobs just to get So if you have a good skill, find out what that skill is. Believe it or not, the richest people in this world are not those who are working for someone. The richest people in this world are those who are using their own creativity to bring everybody else along. So what is it you're good at? Do it. Don't die for nothing. You see, you're going to die someday. That's a given. What would your tombstone say? Would it say, this here lies a person who did what? That's the question. That's the question you want to ask. When I leave this earth, what is it going to say that I did? Oh, that wow, Simiri. Hey, do you remember she did this, she did that? What would somebody say you did? If I have a passion to do for humanitarian work, if I have a passion for that, there's a reason for it. It's my legacy. What will my tombstone say? Like my father said, don't die for nothing, people. Find your skills, find your passion, and go after it with all of your capacity. There's a quote from Johnny B. Truant. He says, you are that beetle on the streets of New York. The universe doesn't hate you, but it doesn't love you either. You are just an atom in its infinite workings. The universe doesn't care if you live, die, suffer, or thrive. Only you care. Need I say more? Need I say more? If only not check off, what you seek, so shall you find. But it's you who has to seek it to find it. The universe doesn't care. Whatever the universe gives you to survive, it's already been given to you. What you do with it, that's your problem. That's your problem. It's already given to you. You've already got it. So whatever it is you want, go after it with all your capacity. Make no excuses. Sometimes my back hurt. Oh, yes, that it does. But you know what? I'm telling you about Dr. Osimiri. I don't care. If it sounds bad, I may have to go walk it off. I may complain now and then, but I tell you one thing, I will go for a walk. I'll do whatever it takes, but it never stops me from doing what I set my eyes to do. Because guess what? I don't want to die in the fields on the bleachers and die for nothing. What moves me, my passion, is those things that I do that give me pleasure. You need to find, excuse me, please. You need to find what that is for you and do it. Because guess what? Nobody cares. The universe, least of all. You are the one who should care. And if you care, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve. If you believe in your legacy, what is that? You want to help other people? I got a phone call this morning, and that really made me sad. But I didn't retreat. I started thinking, okay, how do I make it a difference? We have a program, the IDPS program, where we feed young people and their parents who have escaped death from the Boko Haram terrorist group. And they live in these camps. There are 4 camps. And so the national director called me this morning to say some of the children that I saw in the video that we made have passed on. They died because there was no food. We had fed them, but we did not. We're still trying to raise some money so we can feed them more. But in the interim, as they're waiting, more children are dying. She was so down this morning when she called me, and for me, that's all she had to say to me, because now I'm so motivated. I need to know, okay, where am I gonna? All right, we got to feed these kids. We got to feed these people. What do I do? So now that has become my passion. Okay, so I'm going to go after it with all my capacity. So now I'm going to think, what do I do? How do I make this happen? So if you have something you want to do, ask yourself, how do I make it happen? Not, oh, well, hey, other people have I got my own problems. No, you don't have the same problems. You can eat. You have food on the table every day. Sometimes you eat too much. Sometimes you don't need all your eating. But you got kids who can't even get a meal 1 week. How can such children survive? So if you believe in anything, that's my legacy. I want to be remembered as somebody who cared. What's yours? What's yours? You want to be remembered that you made money? Good for you. There's nothing wrong with making money. But is that all of it? What else do you want to be remembered for? So you go after it with all your capacity. What would your tombstone say? Start thinking about that. And I'm sorry that the PowerPoint kind of jumped and covered something, but it's the same thing. Go after everything you want with all your capacity. Ignore the reality of the present circumstances. Don't let the present keep you from what you can do. Because I teach MBA courses, and I teach the problem-based learning, and problem-based learning is that there are 10 ways to solve every problem. So the reality of your present circumstances may be that you got this big time problem, but how do you solve it? Is the issue. Not that you have a problem. Les Brown says, the problem is not that you fall. When you fall, try falling on your back, because if you look up, you can definitely get back up. Yeah, I love that statement. Ignore the reality of the present circumstances. Think about, how am I going to overcome it? That's more what's important than the existing, problem. Be clear. Get clear on what you want. See, I don't know how old all of you are, but I tell you one thing. If you're not paying attention to the years that are going by, you should. Because your time here is limited. Your time here is limited. So be clear. Don't fool around. Don't play around. Be clear what you want to do. Don't wait till you're 90 years old and decide, okay, I'm going to do something new. Think about what you want to do right now and give it all your capacity. You will be amazed how it becomes a reality. But be clear what you want. Imagine you're already there. Yeah, that's another thing. See what you want, but also see yourself as there already. What does it look like? If I make it there, what does it look like? Cultivate in the moment joyful vibrations from just the thought of getting there. I always say to people, I'll see you at the top. What happens when we get to the top? We will have jubilation. But to get to the top, you got to climb. You have to do the hard work. It's not easy climbing getting to the top. You have to do the work. That's what I mean by you got to give it all. Give it all. Long story short, shake that bridge, people. You have to shake that bridge. Shaking the bridge means that no holds barred. You have one life to live. What happens afterwards is something for spiritual discussion. But cross that bridge. Shake it. Don't be afraid, because when you get to the other side, you can tell people what you've done, what you have achieved. Don't be afraid to tell people what you've done. Don't be afraid to have the audacity to go after it. To shake that bridge, you know, when I started this segment of the seminar, this is what I said to you. I told you the story of the ant and the elephant, and how the ant believed that he helped the elephant to shake that bridge, and how ultimately the elephant believed that the ant helped him shake the bridge. Who believes you? Who are you convincing today that you're shaking the bridge? What bridge are you shaking? Are you doing anything? It is our responsibility. It's your responsibility as a human being. It is your obligation to convince not just others, but yourself that you matter. When you look at what Dr. Monet talked about, the trauma, and Akachi talked about how the trauma also impacts our identity. But you don't have to stay there. You have to evaluate yourself, find out who you are, and love who you are. My ancestors remind us that it is your concern to pick yourself up if you can, but you can't defer it to other people. Because guess what happens? When somebody else, when you put your welfare, your well-being in the hands of others, often it shows a lack of will and alacrity. It shows that you're really not interested, because nobody puts anything that has to do with them, their growth or lack thereof, in someone else's hand. When you do that, then don't be ashamed, or don't be angry. I have learned just recently how to be tech savvy, because initially I was putting it all in someone else's hand. And every time I put it in someone else's hand, I have to wait for their time. But I said, no, honey, I'm going to shake this bridge. I am going to learn how to do these things. So nobody can do it for me and tell me when it's going to be done. I want it done now. And if I want it to be done now, I'll have to learn how to do it myself. You are responsible. You're liable, my dear people, for your growth or lack thereof. You don't want people to hobble you or humble you or hound you because they are accountable for your victory. We are responsible for our own victory. Let me tell you how, when I go for a walk, sometimes, I suppose I should love walking, but sometimes I don't. The only way that I enjoy going for a walk is I take little bites at a time, little bits, little landmarks. If I see that tree stump there, I say, okay, when I get to that tree stump, I will shout victory. So once I go past that, when I get to that tree stump, I say victory. All right. I say, okay, that's the next one. That's the next landmark. When I get there, I shout victory. Victory is yours. You determine when to shout victory. Don't put it in somebody's hand. And what happens when I walk is when I identify all those little landmarks and I get to them and I say victory, I can't wait to get to the next one. And before I know it, I'm home. Before I know I've done 2 miles or 3 miles, wherever direction I choose to go. So you take it bits at a time. So you don't have to be successful all at once. Take it easy so that you control your own victory, your own journey. Be accountable for your journey. It's your duty to yourself. Sometimes take risks. Good risks. Make good trouble, as John Willis said. Make good trouble. But you don't have to depend on others to make you grow, to be the cause and the reason for your growth. There's got to be something in your mind. I always say to people, there is nothing that you want that you cannot have. Think about that. Who wants something that it cannot have? For the most part, you want something you can have. If you're willing to work for it, you can have it. Because like my father said, there's nobody out there who has a horn growing from their forehead. Whatever they achieve is because they believe they could achieve it. They went after it with all their capacity. Now, I have to admit, there are some individuals who have a leg up, maybe rich family members or something like that. That's a possibility. But there are some people who have made it and become billionaires through just their hard work, refusing. I was reading an article where this woman was going and pretending that she was certainly not a very honorable thing to do, but she did it anyway. She wanted to start her own hair salon, but she didn't have the money. And nobody would give her a loan. The banks will not give her a loan. Nobody, not even family. Nobody cared about her little aspirations. But she decided she was going to do something about it. She didn't wait around to see who's going to find love in their heart to give to her. She decided she was going to do something about it. Now, she didn't quite go around. You and I may be judgmental. For those who are religious, they think, God will be angry with that. Well, God gave her that thought. So she decided to dress as a beggar. And she'll go to the corner, she'll go this corner here, and she'll go to all kinds of places and she'll beg. She came up with $15,000 within a year. She came up with $15,000. She sang, she danced in the streets, and and people would give her money. She did all of that and put it together. She was telling her story, how she became a hairstylist. She was able to take a little bit of that money and pay for her to go to school and to release a space. And in no time, she became successful. She did not leave it up to other people. When people said no to her, those people, what you should or should not do, she decided, no, I'm going to do it. I can do this. And she did. And she's a successful woman today. I'm not saying any one of us should go by the roadside and start begging for money. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that you have the responsibility of making your aspiration become a certainty, whatever it may be, and whatever you have to do within reasonable limits. See, your life is a ship that you must steer not into the eye of the sea, but overcome waters in the direction of the coast. Hear what I'm saying to you. That direction of the coast is where you want to be. You don't want to drown in the middle of the ocean, but you will if you're not doing anything. You will if you're not working hard to get to where you want to be. If you're leaving it out to people, people have their own issues. Sometimes they don't care about yours, So it's important. It's your responsibility to go after it with all of your capacity. We can potentially fall, and that's okay. I don't know of anybody who has you go read, do your research, find who did not fall before they made it. We can potentially fail. That is part of the legacy of living. That's life. But as long as we can inhale and exhale, we have the opportunity to rise from rising from the briar patch as quickly as the prickly leaves penetrate our skin. You can rise. Nobody wants to sit in a prickly bunch of leaves. You got to rise. Failure is the rebuff of getting up. Unable to pull yourself out of a dry well, waiting for somebody to throw in a lifeline for you to escape. It's your life. You must have the courage to fail, because it is in your failure that you find the mechanism for success. So what, you fail? So what? I cannot tell you how many things I tried before I became successful businesswoman. I operated group homes for the mentally challenged. I was very successful until I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. But it was a challenge. I had a situation that I didn't even realize that all I had to do was there was an aspect of my contract that was dedicated to administration. But I was so desperate because at that time my husband had his job. They were on strike, so I had to try and do what I could to help, during the time of the strike. But what I failed to do was understand that the budget I was given included a portion for my own salary. So instead, I started teaching neighborhood kids how to read, but I had to do whatever it took, until a friend of mine said, "You better look at your budget real good and see. You shouldn't be out here doing anything. You've got money in there." And I did. But you have to find your own mechanism for success. If you're not chocolate, for what you seek, so shall you find. To step into your power means that you want to be other than what people say you are. That you want to make it to the mountaintop, not by begging, but by doing it yourself if you have to. Even if you fall, get back up. There's nothing that the eye see that will cause it to bleed. Whatever you see in life will only help you see something better. You can look over. You can step over. We're all going to leave this earth. I said it at some point. We're going to be spread out in the open or wrapped in a cloak of darkness. But make sure that your journey here on earth is not for nothing. I sing it like a song. Whatever your goals and your dreams, go after them with the same gusto as the urge to take a breath underwater. Have you ever been in water and you can't swim? Well, some people who can't swim, they drown ultimately. But if you really work at it, you will find that at the moment of you drowning, that's when you learn how to swim. When I was young, my mother told me, "You can't swim and don't go and get in that swim in the river with the kids." But I didn't want to hear her, because I would stand by the river and I watch all those kids playing, and they are just having so much fun. And there I was. My mother thought I couldn't swim. Well, truthfully, I couldn't. But in my mind, I'm looking at all these children having so much fun. Why can't I just jump in there and be like them? And then they were so sneaky, those kids were. They were saying, "Erubis." They would say, "Erubis, alia, erubis, alia." That means, come on in. It's cool. It's not deep. And foolishly, after a while, looking to see where my mother was, she wasn't around, so I jumped in there. Erubis means come on in. Alia, just coming in. It's not deep. But when I dove in there, I found that, nope, it was deep. I couldn't touch the ground. I was going down. But at that moment, I didn't want to give myself up to death. I heard those kids, "Erubis, alia, Erubis, alia." And I was just saying that to myself. I was just I think about 9 years old. And I was just saying that to myself, "Erubis, alia." Whatever it is they were saying, whatever that meant, it has to work for me too. So I was kicking and kicking until I hit the ground and I pushed myself up. I did it several times and I kept saying, "Erubis, alia, until it took me to the lower end of the river. And there was an old woman who was by the water, and she was fetching water, and she saw me. She saw my eyes were red and everything. She saw me struggling. She didn't do anything to help me. But when I got to her, all exhausted and puffing and gasping for air, she said, "Erubis, alia, you found the ground, didn't you? And here you are." And that's it. And that's how I learned how to swim. Because I couldn't give up to death. I didn't want to die. So let the world experience who you are, and you experience the world. You're going to leave this earth at some point. So you might as well make the most of it. Whatever your goals and your dreams, go after them with the same gusto as I did, struggling for air underwater. Use every power, every creativity, every intuition that you must to go after it all. Yes, you can. Abstain from listening to the noise of the world. Lose all terror of disapproval, because I'm telling you right now, when you're trying to make it, people will be disagreeable. Let fear be as worthless to you as a coffin is to the living. If your mind is consumed by the prospect of effectuating the principles of your vision, if you find no meaning in your life unless the vision manifests, you must precociously work for it. Time is limited. Oh God, Rosie, have the courage to will and weave your dreams cogently with passion infused in every fiber and neurons in the cells of your body. Boldly flout those who don't imagine your capacity to prosper. Leave them behind. When you ready your mind, your spirit, and your soul for what you're looking for, it will be at your doorstep. Before you say ashe, and amen, just go for it. Hapundaka. Let them be. When you find yourself on that bridge with so many different people on set or circumstances that could quite easily undermine your belief in yourself, imagine yourself as the ant, perched on the shoulders of the mighty, aiding to shake the bridge and convincing them that you actually did. Erubis, Alia, shake that bridge. That's what life is about. Please be advised that at the end of this seminar, we are going to send to you a questionnaire to complete. Take the time and complete it, because actually what it does, it helps us to get better, to become better presenters and serve you better. We want to thank you so much to the attention to that, and I look for it in your mail for those of you who registered. And I hope that you have enjoyed our presentation today as we enjoyed sharing them with you. Thank you so much for being here today. And I want to bring our speakers back in, and for, quite frankly, an applause. I want to thank you all. Thank you, ladies. Applause, 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 applause. We did a magnificent job. Thank you. And there's a gentleman, I can do a quick, I can do just a very quick assessment and bring the professor. Professor, how are you? I know you did. How did you enjoy our presentation today?
Evening. That was a wonderful presentation, the three of you. I've been on from the beginning. Dr. Simona, well done, good presentation. Akachi, good presentation. You're coming on stronger and stronger. As for Simona, you are already a veteran, and for SZ1, of course, mind blowing and mind blowing. So it's good that it's the women who are talking about this, and I want us to, because on the choosing platform we keep talking about this, and you are talking about it more, and I think that they talk about the African personality and our plight all over the world. We talked about it extensively, and we said we needed more of the talks and more of the actions. And that's why we are going about beyond talks. We're talking about the Chisholm University. We're talking about the Center for Culture in Mporo.
Yes.
And the important thing now, to sum it up, is that we have to transit from protest, because our ancestors started by way of protest. And part of the protest was in making a spirited, forming a brand of Christianity that is empowered by African spiritedness, which today you call Pentecostalism. But that cannot help us much. We need more of our own spirituality. And like we emphasize, we have to move on to forming groups,
Mhm.
so that, like the other civilizations, Asians, Europeans, especially Asians, Jews, live as communities and based on their own morality, their own ethics. We have to begin to form that kind of nucleus around our spirituality, so that we can live, when we live in groups, within the groups of the county in which we live, we can begin to have our own hospitals there, our own schools, whereby within the laws of the United States, we can bring in our own curriculum to fit
Yes.
into not Western oriented African studies, but African studies from African spiritualist point of view,
Yeah.
and
Wait, wait.
then we can now behave what we preach.
Yes.
Because for now, the greatest
Yes.
problem is that we are living as individuals, and there's a
Mhm.
distance between us. So we are not living on our ethics, on our ethics of our spirituality, morality of our spirituality. I think that's what we have to collectively work towards.
That,
Ndewodu.
that is so powerful. Thank you so much, ladies, gentlemen. Well, I'm so grateful to you for being in this program. And for those of you who are watching us, we thank Dr. Dibia Dozier for joining us. Oh, he's a professor at in Nigeria, and just a powerful man. I'm so glad that he joined us. And Minna Luke, who joined us. There are several other people here. And we thank all of you for joining us. And we are going to continue to have these quarterly
Yes.
seminars. And of course, we have our monthly seminars, and we will share that information. You can go to our website, AfricanWomenCommission.net. Again, AfricanWomenCommission.net, and you can get information about our workshops and also when we're going to have the next seminar. Before we leave, please, let me just take a moment and share this video.
African Women Mobilization Commission Child Sponsorship Program. Here at AWMC, we believe that every child deserves a chance to thrive, no matter who they are or where they live, and that opportunities help a child to develop and build precious imagination. A healthy and imaginative mind can see the possibilities of the future. And a child with a future can weather the storms of life if given the right tools and the chance. Sponsoring a child helps a child to eat, get an education, have good health care, and gain a friend and mentor in you. I know you want to know more. Sponsor a child by visiting AfricanWomenCommission.net. After all, a child is waiting. Register to meet your sponsored child today.
Indeed, you should all, if you can, sponsor a child. That's one of our programs to help people who are suffering. I've selected a child that I'm going to sponsor. Every one of us should select a child. You know that you remember I talked about uh, what is your legacy? Well, let it be that because of you, some child grew up to become a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. And so it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an experience. Thank you so much for joining us. And you have a wonderful, wonderful day.